Welcome into Seahawks Today by Chat Sports. I'm Meghan Payton. We are talking Seahawks offseason needs today in order for them to go from worst to first in the NFC West in 2022. If you think that can happen, which I definitely think can, go ahead and subscribe to our channel because we are very pro Seahawks here. We're going to talk about how they can get back to that #1 spot. Go to youtube.com/Seahawks TV or click that big red button to stay in the know in your favorite team. So obviously some things have to change. You have a losing season. Obviously some of that can be, blamed on Russell Wilson being injured, being out. There's a lot of blame that can go around, but at the end of the day, there's going to need to be change. That's what happens when a season doesn't go your way. So as we look ahead to 2022, what do the Seahawks need to do? What are the categories that they're going to be looking at? So the first breakdown I'm just going to give to you guys is very simple. This is what they have coming up. They've got free agency. That means guys that are on their own team that are becoming free agents during the offseason. What are they going to do with that? Are they going to go after other free agents around the league, shop the market a bit, maybe pick up someone new to add to the roster? Then you've got the draft coming up. Obviously, that is kind of up in the air. Seahawks currently do not have a first-round pick. Now, maybe Russ leaves, then that whole kind of idea changes. You're probably with a couple first-round picks. So what are they targeting in the draft? Are they going to do any trades? Just like I said, of course, Russell Wilson being the guy that we are most frequently talking about, but could they trade Wagner? These are all things we're going to discuss here today. And then, of course, are they just going to cut a guy? Maybe there's someone on the roster that they just need to get rid of, save some money, because they're just not performing the way that they need to. So this is the breakdown of what the Seahawks are obviously going to be dealing with this offseason. So what are the glaring questions? There's obviously a lot to unpack, and we can't do it here in a 10-minute video. But what we can do is touch on the 5 things that I think are most critical and are going to determine probably the outcome of the Seahawks 2022 season. So the first one is very clear. We keep talking about it because it is a concern. What is going to happen with Russell Wilson? Does he want to stay in Seattle? I was thinking he did. Then that report came out by Ian Rappaport saying, maybe he wants to explore options. We're hearing contradicting things. Yes, I would love Russ to stay in Seattle. And if you don't, you're crazy. That's just my take. Anyone who doesn't want Russell Wilson on their team really just can't see past a few bad games. Russell Wilson, obviously a dominant quarterback. So I hope he's back, but that's going to be a big factor into how the Seahawks even approach this offseason. So we're going to do a Russ replacement video coming up this week. So make sure you are tuned in, subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on that one. I will ask you guys this: will Russ be back next season? This is the pinned comment for today's show. Type QB1 if you think he'll be back, or type he gone if you think he is out. I do think that he's going to be back. I mean, that's my opinion. But of course, as I said, we've got to prepare either way. So we have a Russ replacement video coming up, and this is where we're going to talk about guys that could take over for Russell Wilson if he decides to leave. Now, again, just to remind you, Seahawks do have final say, but I don't see them keeping Russ around if he doesn't want to be there. So make sure you are subscribed to Seahawks Today because we will have the latest Russell Wilson news and rumors. You can go to youtube.com/Seahawks TV or click the red button. Just make sure you are in the know on everything going around in Seattle. All right, next glaring question is, what should the Seahawks do with Bobby Wagner? Now, Bobby Wagner is someone that I would obviously love the Seahawks to keep, and I think that he's been such an impactful player for this defense. He's entering his last year of his contract, so why are we talking about him? We're talking about him because his cap hit is over $20 million. So can the Seahawks afford that? They can afford that, but the speculation has come up on whether or not they will want to pay his entire salary. So what are the options with Bobby Wagner? Well, you could cut him, but then you're going to lose $3.75 million in dead cap. Is he worth it? I think Bobby Wagner is worth paying the money for because A, it's one more year. Yeah, I know it's a lot of money, but he's also really good. He doesn't have much longer probably left in the league. That's why I don't see a trade necessarily happening. Maybe it could, but I do think that Wagner will remain in Seattle. I hope he does. And then, of course, you look at his performance next year, see how that goes, see if you want to re-sign him. But he is getting older, so I don't see his career lasting too much longer, but I really would hate for them to get rid of Wagner. Is he worth the money, though? We're going to get into his stats, but first I ask you, is Bobby Wagner worth it? If you think so, type Y for yes. If not, that's okay. Type N for no in the comments. As I said, I do think he's worth it. Look at these stats. It's definitely clear on paper that he's been a productive defensive player for the Seattle Seahawks. This year, playing in 14 games, 170 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 5 pass breakups, 1 interception. He has continued to be a dominant player. I mean, this was probably his best year. So yeah, we talk about age, but he doesn't seem to be declining by any means. 138 tackles in 2020. Look at the list for yourself. I think you keep Wagner. That's my opinion on it. I know he's expensive, but there's a reason why he's expensive, and it's because he's proved himself. So if they can, I'd like that. And then, you start looking at other options. So, of course, we are going to get into more Wagner news, but for now, we will get into other things going on in Seattle. And something you guys should definitely check out if you want to rep your Seahawks during the offseason are some really cool hoodies that we got over at Fanatics. If you guys go to chatsports.com/SEA hoodies, you can get up to 50% off on some really cool Seahawks gear, a lot of different collabs, pullovers, hoodies, cool different options. I know it's chilly in Seattle, so make sure you go check out this deal. It will not be around for long, and the sizes are running out. That's chatsports.com/SEA hoodies. All right, next question is, who should the Seahawks target in the draft? Now, of course, this does depend on what Russell Wilson does, so we can't really answer 3 till we know the answer to number 1. But for now, let's just talk without Russell Wilson. If he is coming back to Seattle, how should the Seahawks approach the draft? Well, like we said, they don't have a first-round pick. So all these top guys that you're seeing, most likely not available. I mean, Jordan Davis, those kind of guys are going to be gone. So what do they need? They need pass rush help, and they need offensive line help. It's funny because I feel like this does kind of sound similar to last year, especially offensive line has been an issue. It's better this year, but I do still think they could target some guys here in the draft. So I've given you just a couple guys to keep your eyes out on. The first one I have is Bernhard Raimann. I do think that he's someone that could be around by the time Seattle has their second-round pick. He had 0 sacks allowed in 2020. He's someone that I think could help significantly in Seattle. I think that he's a guy that has still more to prove. You know what I mean? He's young, and some of these guys, you have to realize the adjustment from college to the NFL is difficult. It's not like, you've been in the NFL for a while. You're dealing with bigger guys. So is he going to come out there and be immediately amazing? Maybe not, but this guy's big. He was a tight end and then switched to left tackle. So I've talked about him before on the show. He's 305 pounds, 6'7". I think this would be a good option for the Seahawks offensive line, at least to switch it up, see what they could do with a guy like Raimann. All right, next guy I have for you guys is Zion. I'm probably going to butcher this name. Zion Fetui. Jeez. All right, anyway, I think that this would be an option for Seattle when they're looking at defensive ends. They're looking at guys that can help pass rush. I think Zion's someone that, again, yes, is he new? Of course, all of these guys are. So we don't necessarily know everything about them yet. But he did have 8 tackles in 2021. He did have 1 sack as well. This year wasn't as big for him. But in 2020, he had 7 sacks, 7 tackles for loss, and 3 forced fumbles. So we don't know how well he is. But again, guys, we're talking about guys that are going to be around more so in the second round. So these are just 2 names for you to keep an eye on. But of course, we can do more draft target videos for you guys. So if you want that, go let us know in the comments, and we will make sure to start talking Seahawks draft targets. But for now, let's get back to more glaring questions for Seattle. The next one being, should the Seahawks re-sign Quandre Diggs? This is without a question, not even a question. I don't think there's any way you couldn't. The Seahawks cannot lose Diggs. And again, I know he's going to be expensive. It's because he's earned it. He's been not only arguably the best defensive player, but the best player on the Seahawks team in 2021. Yes, he had that awful, brutal leg injury at the end of the season, and that hurts to see. And he is set to hit free agency during this offseason, but I think Seahawks are going to do everything they can to get Diggs back out there. Maybe they end up using a franchise tag on him. I don't know, though. I know, obviously players aren't huge fans of the franchise tag, but he is expected to sign a big contract, and the Seahawks could actually afford it. Of course, they can afford it, but will they? I do think that they will end up doing that. I think every intention leads us to believe that Diggs is going to be back, but of course, you never know. This injury is definitely not helping him, dropping his value a little bit, especially around the league. So that's why the franchise tag option becomes maybe something a little bit more, appealing to the Seahawks, because it's a one-year commitment versus, signing a long-term deal. See how he recovers from that injury and then make your decision from there. But I think it's very important for Seattle to remain with Quandre Diggs. I'll ask you guys, though, how important is it for Quandre Diggs to be back in Seattle? Let's scale this from 1 to 10. If you think it's important at a 10 for Quandre Diggs to be a Seahawk, go ahead and type 10. If you're saying you could, do without him, you can type a 1 or something in between. But I'm going to go pretty high on this one. I'd say it's about an 8 or 9 importance level for Quandre Diggs to be back in Seattle. Now, the last question that we have for you guys is, who should they target in free agency? So we said free agency, they're going to have to deal with their own guys that are free agents, and they're also maybe going to shop around a bit. So we've done, videos on who they should resign, and we're probably going to talk more about it. For now, we're going to talk about free agents that they could go after, meaning guys on other teams that are going to be available come this offseason. So we talk offensive line issues. Ryan Jensen is a guy that I think stands out, coming from Tampa Bay, or is at Tampa Bay right now. I think that he's done well at center. Now, is he the best center in the league? Absolutely not. He was a fan favorite in Baltimore before coming to Tampa Bay. He has a really good attitude. That's what all the guys say. He's a fun, good locker room guy, and that's important. I don't think people realize how much leadership a center actually has. Now, maybe they end up deciding to stick with Ethan Posick, re-sign him, keep him at center, but Ryan Jensen is an option that I think that Seahawks should look into. We're going to stick on the Tampa Bay side of things because, of course, if you're in the playoffs, it's probably because you have a couple good guys. Carlton Davis. I would love to see Davis in Seattle. This cornerback room has improved. We constantly have to give credit to guys like DJ Reed and, Sidney Jones, people that stepped up with the injuries that Seattle, endured this season. But Carlton Davis would be someone that I would love. He's got great size. He's got the physical profile of a cornerback that just really excels well in this league. So he would be someone I'd love to see next to DJ Reed. If they didn't end up going the cornerback route in the draft, Carlton Davis would be someone that I would absolutely like to see. So far, he's still in the playoffs, but 39 tackles this year, 1 interception, and 11 pass breakups. All right, now still sticking on the defensive side, we're going to move on to the Dolphins. Not as successful of a season. Emmanuel Ogbah, he has been a guy that I think Seattle would actually be a good fit for him. So the Dolphins obviously under a lot of change this year after firing their head coach, trying to figure out what is going to happen in Miami. He is going to be a free agent, and he's someone I'd love to see end up in Seattle. He is, I'd say, I guess, more so an average edge defender, but he is starting to, I think, even improve more. Is he older? Yes, but during the first 5 years, he started to develop, I'd say, a bit more. In 2021, he had 41 tackles, 9 sacks, 9 tackles for loss, 1 forced fumble, and 1 fumble recovery. So we talk about the edge position being something that Seattle needs to improve upon. At the very least, it would be good depth in that room. I think that you could get him for a pretty good price, and I think that he would be willing to come to a place like Seattle, and he probably is ready to get out of Miami. All right, now another guy I have for you, switching back to offense, is Connor Williams. So Connor Williams, Dallas Cowboys. I think that he's someone that I'm not as big of a fan of Williams. He has been kind of more of the average offensive lineman. Took a little bit to get going, but we talk about this, especially with offensive linemen coming from college into the NFL. It's an adjustment. It takes a bit, but he is starting to improve a bit. I'd say in 2020, it was a little bit better maybe than 2021. In 2021, he played 17 games and he allowed 1 sack. So it's hard to kind of grade offensive lineman all the time. I do think that he's someone, again, that you could at least bring in, see how he does during camp, see if he's a good fit for Seattle. But as we talk offensive line, I do think that there's got to be some change here during the offseason. And so he's an option. And another guy I have as an option is Eric Fisher. Now, Eric Fisher is a tackle with the Colts. He's someone I'm a little bit more intrigued by. He's understandably had a slow start in 2021, worked his way back from that Achilles injury, someone that I do think can do well in the NFL. So we start talking offensive linemen, and I know it's not as fun as, call it a running back, wide receiver, or a quarterback, but this offensive line group, that is what determines how well your offense does at the end of the day. So bringing in any of these guys, I think, could at least change things up. The Seahawks are going to have to make decisions, though, on whether or not they want to stick with their own guys, if they want to take out some, re-sign. Again, there's a lot of choices that they're going to have to make. So as we talk free agency, we will be doing more videos on free agent targets for Seattle. I'm asking you guys, name me one player the Seahawks should target in free agency.